I caught my gaslighting husband having an affair, but it turned out it was his long-lost sister. I fell in love with her and left him. My husband had been acting very strange for a few months. He was protective of his phone and lied about his whereabouts, so naturally I started suspecting an affair. One night, after he said he was going to his best friend's house, even though his best friend was out of the country, I decided to follow his location, which led me to a bar. I walked in, preparing for the worst, and after scanning the bar, I saw him seated at the very back with a woman, sharing a beer and laughing. I stared at them with a lot of pain in my eyes. As I was watching, my husband turned his head in my direction. I panicked and instinctively crouched down behind the nearest table. My heart pounded, but I quickly realized that, fortunately, my husband was looking at the waitress and calling her over for another beer. When I saw him turn back to the woman, whom I assumed was his affair partner, I quickly left the bar, feeling devastated. Back home, I got into bed and cried myself to sleep. Around 2 a.m., I heard my husband come in. He stumbled into the bedroom, threw himself on the bed, noticed he had woken me up, apologized and kissed me on the forehead. After greeting me, he asked if I was hungry or needed anything. I told him no and that I was going back to bed. How dare he be so sweet and kind after lying to me and meeting up with another woman? I tried to go back to sleep, but the image of them laughing together replayed in my mind all night. I couldn't believe my husband would lie to me. What did she have that I didn't? She was beautiful and seemed nice, but it was the way he looked at her. He had never looked at me like that. And then he had the audacity to come home, lie to my face, and seem happier than he was before he left. The next morning, I rolled over and saw a plate with 2 eggs over easy, some bacon, and a piece of toast with chocolate syrup on the plate spelling out happy anniversary. My husband had made me breakfast in bed, but he was nowhere to be found. I got up to brush my teeth, and that's when he slipped into the bathroom behind me. He kissed me on the cheek and told me good morning. I pulled away, and he asked what was wrong. I told him I knew he had been cheating on me with another woman. He looked taken aback and confused, asking what I was talking about. I told him I knew he never went to his best friend's house and had gone to the bar to meet some girl because I had tracked his location. He paused for a moment, then started laughing so hard he couldn't catch his breath. I shoved him and stormed out of the bathroom. He followed me, still laughing, and asked me to sit down so he could explain. I didn't want to hear it but reluctantly sat down. He asked if I remembered the night we went out to dinner at the Italian spot and he drank too much, sharing everything about his past. I said yes, still not understanding the relevance. He reminded me of his story about his long-lost sister. That's when things started to click. He said the woman at the bar was his sister, Jill. They had been separated when they were young because his mother couldn't afford to keep both of them, so she gave Jill to her sister who lived far away. They lost contact because his mother couldn't afford the phone bill, and when Jill's guardian passed away, they didn't attend the funeral. By then, Jill was grown and couldn't find her family. She finally found my husband through state records and his Facebook page. They had been messaging for a while and decided to meet at the bar the previous night. This made sense, but I still didn't fully believe him. Why would he lie about going to his friend's house? He said he didn't want to introduce me to her if they didn't get along. I told him he could have still told me instead of lying and making me find out on my own. He apologized and promised not to lie again, no matter how small the matter was. I demanded to see their messages, and he showed me the conversations with Jill. Everything checked out, but I still wanted to be sure. I told him I needed to meet her. He agreed and texted her to arrange a meeting later that night. Since we had anniversary dinner plans, we decided to meet her afterward. We had a couple's massage booked at 1 p.m, so we hurried to the spa. The car ride was quiet, with the lies and the bar scene replaying in my head. My husband, sensing the tension, asked how work was going. I told him everything was fine. We arrived at the spa, and he opened my door. We headed inside and enjoyed our spa day together. After the massage, we both felt more relaxed, though he seemed more at ease than I did. We left the spa and went home to get ready for dinner. My husband was more talkative on the car ride home. I tried to engage more in the conversation. At home, he went to the living room while I went to the bedroom to get ready. I looked at my dresses, debating which one to wear. At 6, I joined him, and we headed to the restaurant where he first told me about his sister. My heart sank again, reminded of his lies. I tried to brush away the feeling and focus on the evening. We ate, and I forced a few laughs. Towards the end of dinner, his phone buzzed. It was Jill, asking where we were. He told her we were at dinner and would head over soon. I asked if she knew I was coming, and he said she didn't. This enraged me, because why wouldn't he tell her? We left the restaurant and drove to meet Jill. I was nervous but also strangely excited. When we arrived, Jill was already there, waiting. My husband introduced us, and she smiled warmly. We talked for hours and it became clear she really was his sister. The connection was undeniable. Over the next few months, Jill and I grew closer, and I realized I had fallen for her. Eventually, I left my husband and started a new life with Jill. The journey was unexpected and tumultuous, but in the end, I found true love in the most surprising place. My husband had been acting very strange for a few months. He was protective of his phone and lied about his whereabouts, so naturally I started suspecting an affair. One night, after he said he was going to his best friend's house, even though his best friend was out of the country, I decided to follow his location, which led me to a bar. I walked in, preparing for the worst, and after scanning the bar, I saw him seated at the very back with a woman, sharing a beer and laughing. For months, my husband had been acting strange, being overly protective of his phone and lying about his whereabouts. My suspicions grew until one night, after he claimed he was visiting his best friend who was out of the country, I decided to track his location. To my dismay, it led me to a bar. Walking in, I prepared myself for the worst. After scanning the bar, I saw him in the back, laughing and sharing a beer with a woman. The sight pierced my heart. Just then, he looked in my direction. Panicking, I crouched behind a table. Thankfully, he hadn't seen me. He was just calling the waitress for another drink. Relieved but devastated, I quickly left the bar. That night, I cried myself to sleep. When my husband came home around 2 a.m., he acted as if nothing was wrong. He stumbled into bed, kissed me on the forehead, and asked if I needed anything. His kindness felt like salt in the wound after witnessing his betrayal. I tried to sleep, but the image of them together haunted me. The next morning, I woke up to find he had made me breakfast in bed, a sweet gesture for our anniversary. But his deceit was still fresh in my mind. When he entered the bathroom where I was brushing my teeth, I confronted him. He looked taken aback, confused by my accusation of cheating. When I revealed how I tracked his location and saw him at the bar, he laughed. This reaction infuriated me. He followed me, pleading for a chance to explain. Finally, I sat down and listened. He reminded me of a dinner we had where he mentioned his long-lost sister. The woman at the bar was her Jill. He recounted how they were separated in childhood when their mother couldn't afford to keep both of them. Jill was raised by an aunt and lost contact until she found him through state records and Facebook. Although his story made sense, I was still skeptical. I demanded to see their messages. He showed me, and everything seemed to check out. Still, I insisted on meeting her to confirm. He agreed, arranging for us to meet later that night. Our anniversary plans continued with a couple's massage, but the tension lingered. We headed to the restaurant where he first told me about his sister. During dinner, I struggled to enjoy the evening. When Jill messaged, asking where we were, my husband replied we'd meet her after dinner, not mentioning I'd be there. This infuriated me. We drove to the bar, and my anxiety grew. When we arrived, Jill was at the bar, talking to the bartender. She looked surprised but greeted me warmly. Her beauty and kind demeanor were disarming. We shared drinks, and I started feeling guilty for my harsh thoughts and actions. Jill and I clicked instantly, and I felt relieved. Over the next few weeks, Jill moved in with us while she looked for a job. We spent a lot of time together, becoming close friends. My husband seemed happy about our bond, but I noticed I was spending more time with Jill than him. One night, as I lay in bed, I realized I had developed feelings for Jill. Imagining a life together, I knew I had to confront these emotions. After a day of shopping, I asked her if she liked me beyond friendship. She responded by kissing me, confirming my feelings. We decided to keep our relationship secret. Our love grew, and we found ways to be together whenever my husband was away. It was exhilarating yet guilt-ridden. One day, while we were in the living room, my husband came home unexpectedly early. Shocked, he dropped his briefcase and demanded to know what was happening. He was devastated. Despite my attempts to console him, he pushed me away. Jill tried to explain, but he was furious, feeling betrayed by both of us. His sadness turned to rage as he accused me of being ungrateful and cruel. The next day, he served me with divorce papers. Jill and I moved in together, continuing our relationship openly. Although I felt guilty for hurting my husband, being with Jill made me happier than I had ever been. She got a great nursing job, and we built a new life together. Despite the chaos, I found love in an unexpected place, and Jill and I lived happily without the need for secrecy.